they were dealing with addictions and chronic pain. So they had two things going at the same time, chronic pain and addictions. And it was fascinating work. Number one, the clientele was very interesting. And I also had an opportunity to work with a very, very excellent clinical psychologist. His name is Daniel Skandarian. I believe he still practices a little bit of no longer at Loma Linda Behavioral Medicine Center, but he was just great, and I learned a lot from him. One day we had a group counseling session, and everyone, it was a small room, smaller actually than this room, and just chairs, against the walls, kind of like a circle, but more like a square, I guess. And I remember very distinctly one of the new gals who had been admitted to the ward because it was inpatient. She came in. She took a seat to our left or to our right, and she sat down in the seat, and within about 3 or 5 minutes she was asleep. And Dr. Skandarian saw that, of course. I saw it too. I mean, nope. It was hard not to miss. She had fallen asleep. And Skandarian, he got the attention of this person that's sitting next to her and said, "Wake her up." And so she nudged her and she woke up, and he got her attention. He said, directly to her, he said, "What is your behavior communicating to everyone in this group?" What was her behavior communicating
I don't
to
care.
everyone in that group?
I don't care.
I don't care. My needs are more important than yours. Your voices aren't important at all right now. I'm consumed about myself. She owned it. It was very neat that she owned all that. And he said, he kind of shook his head and said, "That sounds good." And then he just went out. It was just one of those magical moments. He called her on something, and she never did it again. She never fell asleep in that group process. Nobody else ever dared to fall asleep in that group process. I can tell you that right now. Sometimes when we teach classes, we notice people, we do get tired. I mean, 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock classes, 7 o'clock classes, especially, people get tired. But we also notice as professors that sometimes people are texting. Sometimes people are doing their emails, and they're not making eye contact with you. And I'm not looking at anybody because I don't want to, point anybody out. But that happens, and to me, it doesn't hurt my feelings because, I've been there, I've done that. I know what it's like to be tired and that sort of thing. But when your colleagues present, now this is when I can look at everybody, right? When the last day of class, when your colleagues present, please listen to them. Be respectful. Don't fall asleep on them. Ask them good questions. Treat them as you would like to be treated yourself. That would be a nice thing. And always remember that's kind of what we want in life, isn't it? To be treated with respect. To me, it doesn't matter per se because I won't take it offensively, but other people might take it offensively. And they might think, well, I'm boring. I have nothing to say to you. Or you have nothing that you want to hear from me. So please don't give them that message, okay? Is it okay? You're okay? Okay. All right. So with that in mind, let's just start with a word prayer. Father, we thank you for listening to us even when we don't make sense. We thank you for always being there to hear our cries for help. And also, we hope we take the time to thank you when we notice that you're right by our side and guiding us in every step that we make in our lifetimes. We pray, Father, that we support each other throughout this learning process, and that the learning process in and of itself can be fun and rewarding. We ask these things in your Son's name. Amen. Okay, did everybody sign it? Good. My wrinkled piece of paper.
Anybody not sign?
Only piece of paper I can find.
Okay, we got an extra one?
Yes.
Steve Snyder did.
Okay. Yeah. And
Perfect.
yeah. Okay, so some of this is going to be repetitive, but that's okay. Repetitive is good because
Yeah.
then you don't feel lost. Now,
Yeah, especially
in another week, it's going to be you might have a little headache, but I hope it won't be too bad, okay? Because I'm gonna go over some of the higher stuff, okay? But up till now, we've been, I think, okay with the amount of material we're giving you. We haven't overwhelmed you or anything like that. But this is kind of just the process when you go through research. This is repetitive. You try to identify the problem. What is the problem? You try to do your literature review, see if it really is a problem, or has it been asked and answered already? Sometimes it's been asked, but maybe it's not been answered very well. In that situation, if you can do the study better, go for it, or if they're using outdated assessment tools, or it hasn't been done in the last 10 years. And now you have better assessment tools. Whew, now you can probably attack that topic, collect the data, analyze the data, draw conclusions. That's the stuff we're not doing, right? But that's usually part of the process. And there's a crow. Oh, let's see if I can find the crow thing.
Yeah. By the way, that's basically an outline of the dissertation.
Yeah, basically.
5 chapters, at least at this school.
Let's see if I can find my crow here. Bird, cat, bird talking, creeping cat. You saw the creeping cat already, right?
Yeah.
The crow
Where,
experiment.
did you see crow? Where?
You see your
Oh, here. Oh, yeah. This is kind of interesting.
So it's the cat and a crow, or?
No, this is a crow.
Oh,
is of the same caliber as many primates. So it really is appropriate to think of these
Oh,
animals
he's
as
at the end.
feathered
I'm
apes.
sorry. We don't want to be at the end.
Cognitive abilities that our early ancestors might have had.
Just how smart are these crows?
Crows are very, very smart birds.
In an experiment that has never been tried before, this crow will be challenged to push its abilities to the next level.
can you blow it up?
Oh, yeah.
We're
Sorry.
looking to see if the crow can act out a 3-step plan,
Oh,
I think like 3
no.
chess moves into the future, and pull up the string to get the short tool, take the short tool to get the long tool, and then take the long tool to get the food. Oh, this should be I'm really fascinated
here
by
okay?
this. I really want to see if they're able to do it because I hope they can, but it may just be too long a distance between their first action with the string and the time they're getting the food, so they're going to kind of forget what they're doing once they're up and string pulling. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how this is going to go.
This is the first time this experiment has ever been attempted, and our cameras are there to record what happens.
Checking everything out. I can't reach it. No, can't quite reach it. Well, okay. Let me think. Doesn't quite reach, okay.
The crows have done amazing.
Touchdown!
Really surprising. Well, we didn't expect them to be this good at these kind of problems. They've performed at the highest levels with tasks requiring technical
We have one
intelligence out of
with
pretty
that
much
wire too, don't we?
Yeah, I was trying to find that one because I wanted to show that one
I would be
first.
curious to know what experiments I did with the crow before this
Nothing,
one.
nothing.
Nothing.
It was
Okay.
on the wire.
Nothing. That was,
It's called-
that
No
was.
training.
No prior
no
training.
training,
Any
no-
other like shorter
no,
experiments, nothing?
No,
No.
no shaping.
Let me
to-
see if
But
I
it was a crow in a captivity, correct?
Yeah.
So it was already used to
Maybe,
humans and
go to.
they had never brought in any of these toys in before to let it play with?
New
Or?
tab.
Don't know about that,
Yeah,
but
'cause
they
that's what I'm
have
wondering.
to my knowledge, there was no
Yeah.
shaping of, okay, train the bird to get something out of the cage. And then,
Did they maybe show them before maybe?
now, that I don't think they did.
So are they trying to, just to recap, they said they were focusing like on a 3-step process? Have there
Let's
been
see if this
other
is the one.
experiments that show maybe like
A
a
2-step,
2-step?
Yeah.
that's what I'm wondering.
The 3-step was getting the small
Yeah.
stick,
Right,
getting the long stick, and then getting the meat.
but are there like previous studies that show like the 2-step thing? And
Oh,
Oh.
I'm trying to find something right now. Oh,
Yeah,
here it
there's,
is.
oh, there it is. This,
Here
I like, I personally like this one
This
better.
one's cool. Okay. Now, there's a
Look.
piece of, I'm trying, oh, wrong
That one
one.
here.
Wrong. There's
There we
a,
go.
there's a piece of meat or something in that too, tested. And there's a little, like a basket,
It's a
basket
magnet.
with a hook there, you know. Now, the wire he has, or she, whatever it is straight. The wire is straight, but there's a basket that has that loopy thing. Now, look what it's doing. Can you see what it's doing?
Yeah, it's trying to poke at the bottom.
He's trying to bend,
He's
or she's
bending.
bending the, see?
Yeah.
You see
Maybe.
it? You see it?
Oh.
And now he's gonna try to hook.
What?
There we go, there we go. We got it.
We made a tool.
Crows love to play. They are one of the most
And if I remember
intelligent
right, a crow's proportion of brain size to body weight is greater than that of a dolphin.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, we look at research, we talked about qualitative, right? You listen to one of the most extensive qualitative studies I've ever heard of by that Brene Brown, where it took her 6 years to, you know, to do all those interviews on vulnerability and shame and remember. So, but qualitative generally, you aim for about 30 people on average. And you do interviews, you record everything verbatim, you translate them into transcripts, you do focus groups, you do critical incidents, and you look for themes. And there's a program called NVivo that you can use that will help you with that process, looking for the themes. Then there's quantitative statistics, and we saw last week some of the stuff that I've done at presentations. I've done some descriptive stat stuff like with the gender, right? Remember the gender thing? You know, still the gender imbalance that we see with full-length animated movies. We also looked at plagiarism, which is actually, it used, when I compared religious institutions to non-religious institutions, I was using a t-test, which is, could be considered a one-way ANOVA. And we'll talk more about ANOVAs and MANOVAs and all that stuff later. This is where you might get the little headache type of thing going. But we also, we talked about lots of different types of research. In general, the two things that you want, and this is repetition again, is you want two variables. For your paper, this is what all we're looking for at this point in time, two variables. And a crazy set of variables would be height and intelligence, right? Think about that. Is there a relationship between height and intelligence?
Sure. Isn't that right, Gina?
Okay, now, how tall is Jerry, do you think?
6'1".
That's close. That's pretty good. What are you?
2.
6'2". Okay. How tall do you think I am?
5'1".
You're close again. I mean, you're good. I'm 5 feet. Yeah, I barely made 5 feet. So, if I was making a hypothesis, I would say what in terms of intelligence with height? The shorter you are, the smarter you are. He's going to say just the opposite, right? The taller you are, the smarter you are. So a non-directional null, all that says is there's a relationship here between these two things. We don't know what it is, but there's a relationship. Directional means I say shorter is smarter. He says taller is smarter. That's directional. Does that make sense? I mean, that's directional versus non-directional, right? So non-directional would be like a two-tailed test. Directional, one-tailed, because you're going in one direction, right? So shorter individual, when you say a directional null means nothing exists. You know, you say a shorter individual is not significantly more intelligent. This is just standard nomenclature. I don't know what's going on.
I think it bumped to the next video. Browser.
Where'd my video go?
No, your browser.
Huh?
Your browser.
My browser?
Yeah.
Oh, it's doing another crow.
It just,
Oh, well, let's just see what happens there.
we have no idea.
He wants water. He wants water. She's scared. Put more water in it. Give the bird some water.
There's an old Disney.
Somebody knows about water.
There's an old Disney short about a crow. I don't remember if it's a crow or a. They're stuck in the radio box, and they're
haven't
talking
seen
about
that
how
one.
intelligent they are. They're
Yeah,
in fights with the farmers.
I have to look for
So
that.
there's-
So there's a little video with.
There's a video where the crow is, because the farmer's annoyed with the crows, so the crows sneak, or blackbirds, I don't know if it's a difference, but they sneak into the radio box, and the crow starts talking in it, like, the crow is an intelligent creature, he's your friend, he's the farmer's friend, and the farmer's listening to it, like, what?
I haven't seen that one, but
That's funny.
but I tell you, they've done everything you can think of on YouTube, right? Anyway, yeah, okay. So if you had your research hypothesis, you would say there is a difference. All right, so no difference, not significantly more intelligent, and is significantly more intelligent. That's kind of how that would look. And of course, I'm saying, yep, smarter, shorter, smarter. Oh, and he says no. You just disproved your own hypothesis. Okay, all right, so independent variables, when you think about them, are variables that you kind of categorize.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, because you have penguin. Yes, penguin. Okay.
I think I used this analogy at the beginning of the class. Everybody that's flown in and out of LAX, raise their hand. Okay, how long, and to Riverside, how long does it take to get from here to LAX?
Depends on the time of day.
Depends on the time.
It depends.
And the
It,
weather.
what is it? You said it depends. What is it?
The time.
Time is dependent upon
Traffic.
traffic,
It's getting
Or
nifty.
Time of day.
time of day,
Okay,
et cetera, et
weather.
cetera. So
Or,
time is.
or day of the
independent.
month, or holiday, or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
any number of variables.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the major difference. Independent, you can
Whether the
manipulate.
Super Bowl is playing, right? People are staying home. Okay, anyway. Christmas, traffic, right? Not Christmas traffic, but the day before
Thanksgiving.
Christmas.
Thanksgiving era
yeah.
traffic is traffic.
Okay. So IQ and height, we might say height is the dependent variable, and your intelligence depends upon your height. Does that make sense? Intelligence is the well, no, let me,
I was gonna
no,
say you got it
no,
backwards.
I got it backwards. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I put you in a different category. I put all the short people over here and all the tall people over here. Okay, so I'm categorizing you, or I'm just measuring your height. But,
Artificial dichotomy.
or I snap my fingers and I make you short. I don't know. Okay, so that is the independent variable, and intelligence depends on whether you're short or tall. Does that make sense? Now it makes sense. Okay, good. Okay. All right. So in your paper, you make assumptions. You know, you obviously you assume certain things depending on what you're doing in terms of your study. If you're using assessment tools, you're going to assume that those tools are valid and they're reliable, right? You're not going to use crappy tests, right? You're going to use good tests. So you assume they're good.
Everybody know the difference between, anybody want to take a shot at what's the difference between valid and reliable, except for the science guy?
Yeah. Yeah, if a test is valid, then it's valid. If a test is reliable, then it's reliable. If a test is valid, then it's reliable. If a test is reliable, then it's reliable. If a test is valid, 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 then it's reli let's say the test is trying to measure intelligence. If it's valid, it measures intelligence.
Yeah.
If it's reliable, it does it
Consistently.
consistently, yes,
Every
all the
single
time. Yeah, right,
And
all
my
right.
least favorite test is, anybody hear of the Myers-Briggs? Not valid, not reliable.
No?
No, not
But
even a little bit.
it's a neat thing to, just talk about.
It's a neat thing to talk about, yeah.
Sorry.
I actually, I was gonna say, I'll get to you in just a second. I actually did an experiment where there was in fact, this is down to student life. This has been 7 or 8 years ago. And I think it was toward the beginning of the year. And I went down there, piece of paper, and all the volunteers, probably about a dozen people there at the time. And I said, okay, well, I've talked with Sam Lenore, and so this isn't firsthand. So this Myers-Briggs may not be completely accurate. And so, but this, given what Sam told me about each and every one of you, this is my analysis based on the Myers-Briggs. So I handed it out. Everybody was folded. I think I even stapled it, but it's definitely folded. Handed out to everybody. Everybody opened it up. Of the 12, 14 people there, probably only 3 said that this wasn't a good fit. And then I had them take that piece of paper and hand it
Pass
to the person next to them.
person.
And I handed out the exact same thing to everybody. And what I did, I took out traits from
Yeah.
TMJ
humor.
or what, ESPN
You
or
know,
whatever those categories
Good head
are.
on your shoulders. I mean, how many people are gonna say, "Oh, no, that's not me," right? Good head on your shoulders. Sensitive. What would be some key phrases that most people would buy into? Describes them.
Well-rounded.
Well-rounded, balanced. Pick up a horoscope, right? You read a horoscope, you're gonna find something that's gonna hit all of us, and we're gonna go like, "Oh yeah, it got me."
He will meet someone new
Yeah.
today.
Oh yeah, you'll meet someone new today. Oh yeah, I had to go to McDonald's. And it's
Myers-Briggs was a mother-daughter team, and they were basically groupies of Carl Jung. And so the whole Myers-Briggs thing was based on Carl Jung's thing. Mom had a high school diploma, and the daughter had, I think, a bachelor's degree in political science or something like that. Neither one of them were exactly what you'd call quantitatively oriented test developers. But people bought it. Myers-Briggs has a great marketing department, and
it's being used
that's
to
how
this
that
day.
came about. So if you ever want to use it for evaluating students or personnel or whatever, don't, please.
Use something else.
So there's, why does it always sound like, okay, maybe this is just like the urban legend, but like the psychologists and career planners and all this stuff.
They tend to use this.
They use it. That's just-
You know,
it feels good.
and can it be used in a positive sort of way?
Yeah.
Sure. You can take it, and you can take anything. I could create a test in 10, 15 minutes, and I could take it and just using the information, do an interview with a person, kind of give them some guidance as a result of the interview, but use this as a starting place for the interview. Does that make sense? I could easily do that, you know. But I usually just skip that part. I just go to the interview, get to know the person, and now I can help you with whatever you put on the table. You know, I don't need a test to tell me where to
Problem with
start.
Myers-Briggs and other popular, when I say popular, I don't mean everybody likes them. Popular as in you don't need any training, real training, is that it doesn't take into account that behavior is conjectural. And so where we have a friend of ours is married to a hydraulic engineer. That's his thing. He won't say a word in a social setting, but you get him talking about anything having to do with water, and he'll talk your ear off.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
He's very smart when it comes to
Yeah,
that stuff.
and that within that
And he's
context. So
comfortable with that
behavior
stuff.
is dependent on context.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just one more.
Sure.
When you were saying the difference between valid and reliable, just valid, you're saying manages
It
intelligence?
measures what it's supposed to measure.
Yeah.
So it
Is your
says-
speedometer a valid measurement? Does
Yeah.
it really measure,
Does this-
when it says 70, are you really going 70?
Does this math quiz actually measure your math knowledge, or is it more of an English test.
And that happens all the time.
Right?
Accurate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accurately is reliability. Does it measure it consistently?
So valid just means it measures.
It measures what's
Well,
supposed.
actually, you're right. It's
Yeah.
accurate. It measures it efficiently and accurately and
Reliable means it does so consistently.
it does it.
Exactly.
Today, I'm gonna produce the same performance, fairly the same performance as I will 2 months from now.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, but like math, like that's a good example. You take a math quiz. Sometimes the math quiz is more about,
Reading comprehension.
yeah, the reading comprehension. You know,
Yeah.
so how you word something can kind of really trip you up,
Right.
right? And you've taken quizzes where just one word, you misunderstood maybe the word, right? And you know, sometimes that's just part of the package with math. You
That's
have to
actually-
use language.
That's actually one of the problems with that national test that they give.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they test the kids like here,
Mhm.
they test them in English,
Mhm.
but they don't test them in American.
Mm.
They test them in English. So the questions
English
that they'll
as
get
in
from
Great
math,
Britain?
yeah, it'll say a trolley uses such and such liters of petrol
Mhm.
to get. And the students, I
They
don't.
do
What's
it
a trolley?
with
What's
the
petrol?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're
What's
stumped
a leader for that
just
matter?
because they're stumped just because of the fact that the wording isn't American. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
use those terms. They
Yeah.
use English terms, and our kids get stumped.
Yeah.
And that's the national test?
And that's the national. That's the whole reason, Common Core and everything, because Americans don't score well on that. Actually, the international test. Sorry. Well,
And color COLOUR.
it's in the Queen's English,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
in American. So,
I had a professor as well, she said, Great Britain and America are two countries separated by a common language.
Australia too.
That's good.
New
That's
Zealand,
good. And sometimes
Way different.
we don't learn things right either. I mean, you know, you take 7 divided by 0. What have you been taught the answer to that is? 0. Some people can't answer. Who knows? Huh? 0, right? But that's not right. 7 divided by 0. Well, let's look at it this way. 7 divided by 1. How many times does 1 go into 7?
7.
How many times does 0 go into 7?
We can't.
Infinite or undetermined. An undetermined number of times. It's not 0. It just keeps infinity. It can keep going in and going in and going. You look it up.
Because you put nothing into it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, that's ours.
yeah. I hope that's not permanent either.
No. Absolutely. Uh-oh. No.
Oh. You got me, okay.
That's not risk either.
So limitations. This is in your paper, right? You probably already done it, right? This is the shortcomings of what you did in terms of your work. These are things that you could not control. These are limitations of the study. You know, if the clients, or let's say you had somebody managing, you know, whatever experiment that was being done. Let's say they had a raging headache, and they did the same experiment 10 successive days, 10 people each day, but on 2 or 3 of the 10 days that this person ran this experiment, they had a raging migraine or had a fight with their spouse or something. You know, this is stuff you can't control. This could actually contaminate the results. That would be a limitation to the study, right? Delimitations are, think of D as being, you're the driver, you're in the driver's seat. These are things you control, you know. So you decide, all I'm going to test at my hospital, like with my biofeedback studies, all the people I'm going to do my experiment on are migraine sufferers. Even though I have people coming in with tension headaches, muscle tension headaches, I'm only going to choose migraine sufferers. So that's a delimitation. I selected that one subgroup. I got in the driver's seat and picked that one. I picked only one hospital, you know, versus doing a nationwide study. You know, so that's what you control. Limitations are what you can't control. Height and intelligence. Yeah. So control variables. What you try to do with control variables is you try to negate the effects with the type of analysis that you select to run on the data, right? So you try to make them not important to your study. You control you kind of make them silent. Make their voices silent with an analysis that you choose, I guess is a good way to put it. Moderating variables, you want to know how do they influence the end outcome between these two variables that you've selected. So it's a little different. One, you want to kind of silence the voice. The other one, you want to listen to the voice. How does adding this other variable to heightened intelligence make an impact on the resulting outcome? So what could you add to heightened intelligence? What could be a moderating variable?
So gender.
Gender, right? So if you're a short female versus a short male, you're going to be smarter than a tall person in general, right? Or eye color could be a moderating variable. Hair color might be a moderating variable. You were saying something about redheads
Oh,
the
yeah.
other day.
Those of us from Irish ancestry, people with red hair, especially Europeans, tend to be able to produce their own vitamin D.
Did you know that?
Yeah. My mother is 76. Yeah, I shouldn't have. 76. Not a gray hair in her head. Now she's not a redhead, but she got that gene from. We have a very strong Irish descent. Irish background. I don't have any gray hair. I'm 55. I'm starting to get some on my beard, but so there's things about hair color that can. Well, it's not the color of the hair that's causing the production of the vitamin D, but it's associated, it's closely associated. And you think about it, it makes sense. Scandinavia, Scotland, Northern Britain. We were talking about Washington State not getting a lot of sunshine a while ago. Those are countries that don't get a lot of sunshine. And if you don't get a lot of sunshine, the people that have vitamin D deficiencies are going to start to die off. And it's going to kind of leave the ones that can produce their own D.
And lo and behold, countries that are near the equator that get an appropriate amount of sunlight, typically the people in those countries have less depression than other countries. Hello?
More sunlight.
Also, people with green eyes are more likely to have Parkinson's disease. So I mean, there are things. Yeah,
blue eyes. Yeah, blue eyes.
Well, but it's sort of like there are so many things we don't know, and some things that we're finding out that. Remember when I talked about the swirl of the head and homosexual, being homosexual. So there's all sorts of things we don't know. Why? We don't know.
I don't know, it's just something I had observed along the lines of what your husband had mentioned before. In our country, we have the original people were the Maya. Mm-hmm. And the people who are still there of Maya descent or have a lot of the strong Maya blood in there, make sure they tend also not to get gray hair until after they're 50 or 60.
That's very interesting. Because their hair is dark.
Yes, their hair is dark.
Yeah.
It's black.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the same thing like a lot with Native Americans here too. They don't get white hair until they're much older as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's in all these things. There's probably a reason for it. There's a gene, there's a chromosome, there's something that's going on inside of us that will explain it. We just haven't figured it out yet. But this is stuff that you can study and find out.
Yeah, the darker the skin is, the quicker you'll get frostbite. The lighter the skin is, the quicker that you'll get yourself nasty burns. Since you don't have too many fair-skinned people who originated from equatorial regions and vice versa. Not too many dark, with the possible exception of Eskimos, who originated from the northern climates. Makes sense.
Did we ever do this in class? Did we collect our GPA in our height? Oh, write it on a little piece of paper. Your height in inches, and your current GPA as you know it. Right, and then turn it in. Let's prove that shorter people are smarter, okay?
Now see, she just
That's a bad
just made a fundamental mistake in research. Can anybody tell me what it is?
Yeah, that's a bad
Prove.
We can't prove anything.
Well, not only did she use the four-letter word prove, But she said, I want to set out to demonstrate or prove that my position.
We write our names on
Isn't
it.
it 4 letters?
Yes, it's 4 letters.
Height in inches or feet in inches?
4 letters.
Was it height all in inches or
In
feet in
inches.
inches?
The height, your height.
Now
So
put it in
I'm
inches so we don't
five
convert.
feet, I'm 5 feet.
Put it in inches, not feet and inches.
Yeah,
So
just inches. So I'm 5
What are you?
foot,
Because we're
so
the same. You're 5'3",
5
I'm
times
5'3".
12 is 60 inches. I'm 60 inches tall,
Oh.
all right?
How
So
tall are you?
I'm 60.
Okay, so we're 63 then.
All right, all right, all right.
There we go.
But see, whatever your inches is and your current GPA.
But you never go into research with an agenda. Your only agenda is to say, what are these data going to, what story are these data going to tell me? Because if you got a hobby horse or a position to get funding for, that's actually going
Pass
on.
it, pass it in, pass it in.
That's the
Yeah,
answer.
let me figure out what we prove, what we can demonstrate.
Or maybe we're demonstrating honesty.
We're demonstrating honesty.
There you go.
Are we putting, we don't put our name, right?
Don't
No,
put
no,
your-
no, no,
No,
no,
no,
no.
no, no.
That high school GP might be more
All
interesting,
right, let's see what we got.
because now it's like,
That's 67.
you better have a high GPA to even be here. You're throwing your high school.
Oh,
Yeah,
There.
let's not talk
Okay,
about that.
62.
Undergrad doesn't count.
62.
Undergrad doesn't count. I don't want to talk about
Well, this is
it.
gonna be hard.
After that, it was good.
Hey, could you help?
Also, the inches that we have are larger
what
than
is it?
we have here. When I was in Belize, I was 5'2". When I came here, I got 5'3" point something.
I'm not
I'm
done.
like, oh, yeah, when I moved from Belize to here, the scale is different. It's like the inches here are shorter than the ones we have back home.
We're gonna.
yeah, you just have to live with it.
No, I was 5'2" in Belize when I came here. I'm 5'3" point like 7 or something.
You grew up.
I'm 25. I'm not changing it. I'm 26 now. I'm not getting any taller. I stopped growing at like 21, so. No, I think the inches here are shorter or smaller than ours.
Your inches might be the law.
Don't worry, you'll get older. I've lost at least a quarter of an inch.
I know. My mom used to be my height. She's like now 4'9" now. So she said just to be my height, she has to wear heels. But we're short anyway, so.
I've always been short.
You are never tall.
No, never tall ones. What? 162?
Oh, it's from centimeters.
Oh, okay. What?
2.54 centimeters per inch.
Okay.
There you go.
You are good, sir. Okay.
Well, that's his
Tell me
field.
about it.
That's first, that's huge, that's big.
There's got to be an app for that.
There is.
Okay.
Or you go online.
Somebody go online and get a centimeter to
162.
inches.
162.
What's the centimeter at?
Centimeters 162.
So just divide that by 2.54.
What you got?
So it's 172, you said?
162.
64 to make it easy.
Okay.
63.7.
Okay.
64.
Okay.
Round it. We're gonna put
Here.
you and me in there?
I'm taking Monday off.
No. Okay.
Actually, we should.
That's why I look.
Okay, no, no.
There's
okay.
still one.
Okay,
no,
okay.
It's Monday.
Yeah.
You. Oh, there's one more.
Oh.
Add more. Add more. 67. Okay. Okay, ready? Let's see. Let's see what it is.
Vindicated once again.
It's not much of a relationship, though.
Oh.
I have to say that. It's inverse, though. So the taller, the smarter, but anyway. All right.
What is considered tall though?
Yeah, well, it's just a relationship to everybody else, that's all. But that's not right. Yeah, that's wrong.
1.4.
Absolutely, absolutely wrong. Okay. All right. So anyway, so we did that. Okay. You know, in terms of intelligence, GPA may not be a good measure. On the other hand, it may be a good measure. Maybe giving you an intelligence test would be better, like the Wessler, one of the Wessler scales. So.
And even GPA, it's hard, we can't control how many classes you've had. If you've had one class and you got an A on it, your GPA is 4.0. But you get a person that's taken 120 hours and their GPA is 3.9.
Oh, actually, the minus was the shorter you are, the top. Yeah.
It was inverse.
No, it was the higher the number with the higher the GPA.
I hate to admit it, but you're right on that.
I'm right on that.
Okay. But if we look at the data and say
Here's
that
what
our
another
sample
class.
is skewed
Cool,
towards
so
short
it was
people.
right. It was right.
It was skewed towards short people in
Yeah.
terms of our sample.
This is one class that we did way back when, and it did seem to show an inverse relationship, so that the shorter a person was, the higher their GPA, was. So anyway, but so this is consistently showing, GPA of
Just
shorter.
classes consistently have short people in them.
Here, this was a bigger, and it was just a fluke. It was a big inverse relationship, and it was a sample of 10. But that doesn't, because it's such a small sample, no big deal. Look at this chart, though. What does this chart tell you?
Well, this is actually,
Very-
this is
very
real data.
interesting. This is real data, actual chart,
Okay.
actual analysis. What does it tell you?
Intelligence and religiosity. And this little data point right there
Is the United
is the
States.
United States of America. There.
Remember, correlation, perfect correlation is 1. Negative 1 is inverse. So the more religious you are, the less intelligent you are. Positive 1 is the higher you are in terms of religiosity, the smarter you are. This is showing an inverse relationship. So this is suggesting that the higher you are in terms of religiosity,
Yeah. More religious you are, the dumber you are.
oh, but
But
now look at that though.
But look at it.
And it may be true in reality, but
it's true according to the sample.
according to the sample, but could we suspect there might be some problems with the research? And if so, what might be some
Okay,
suspected
and it's got to
problems?
be more than just a gut. I don't
Yeah,
think so
you
because
can't-
I know religious people are walking
you can't-
around
you
or
can't.
walking
And they're
encyclopedias.
Third world countries don't have probably as much education.
And they tend to be highly religious.
Okay.
What he said.
Yeah, that's a valid point, right? Valid point. We could also say, what one test
Yeah.
would be valid for
Right.
a lot of countries? You know,
So-
if you use one test like a Wessler
So if I show up in
intelligence
Afghanistan,
test that was standardized on a U.S. population, how fair is that to use that on people from a different country?
now we're talking about a valid, reliable instrument, but if that valid and reliable instrument is not normed on a certain population, say
yeah.
tribal areas of Afghanistan, then you can't use that instrument.
Yeah. What
on
kind of
tribal
questions
areas.
do we ask? Did we use the trolley question? I mean, in a country that has never seen a trolley? I mean,
Well, and in the same sense, how do you measure religiosity, or what was it?
that's another thing.
Yeah.
Do they
How-
use the same scale? There actually there's
Was
a lot
it-
of scales out there to measure religiosity, and it all depends on the construct that you use. How do you define
How do you
religiosity?
define intelligence too? That's another construct that
So-
defies a one-dimensional answer.
So what did they use a variety of testing for each one of the variables, religiosity, irreligiosity, and?
They didn't say.
They
They
didn't.
didn't say.
They
in
didn't
this
say, and that would be an
particular
extreme
news
weakness of
report.
the study. How did they determine?
You know, and that's the problem with news reports. Sometimes they just give you some sensational little tidbit. Oh, but then they don't back it up with a little more context to help you understand, is it really a valid explanation of the data that was collected?
And if whoever wrote the tests is, because generally when you think of science, you think of like an evolution's perspective. And so I'm
So
just wondering, like,
was
who
it-
wrote the test?
was
Was it a
it-
religious person or
Exactly.
an intelligent person?
And we don't know those answers. So that was an example.
In a perfect world, it really wouldn't make a lot of difference because data is data. And a person of faith who is a scientist will put his or her presuppositions
One would hope.
to the side.
One would hope.
One would hope. And a person who may just be an avowed atheist would put his or her presuppositions
One would hope, right.
to the side.
Right.
Because that's the human factor.
Well,
You
with
have
it-
to, in research, you gotta just make it go away as best you can.
The reality, though, is we don't have enough information here to really make any valid conclusions. Now, here's something
Now, this one we
that's a
did.
little more respectful.
This
Now,
is done by the Pew, everybody heard of the Pew organization? The-
And basically what they did is they sampled people of different faith systems, and they basically asked them, is torture appropriate? And some people said, yeah, torture can often be, that's in the dark orange, can often be justified. The lighter orange can sometimes be justified. The lighter blue can rarely be justified. The darker blue can never be justified. And the gray, I don't know, or they refuse to answer. So we look at people, what is this telling you? Based on what you see?
That white
Shut the door,
evangelical
please.
Protestants and white non-Hispanics.
It's hard to hear over the.
Yeah.
Yes, please,
Say it
it's hard to hear
again?
over the talking.
Well, I'm looking at the white
Thank you.
evangelical Protestants and the white non-Hispanic Catholics have similar views on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
appropriate
You-
use of torture.
Yeah, and if you look at, it's the unaffiliated who and the white mainline Protestants who have the most objections to the use of torture.
And that would
Followed
be,
by the
by
two
mainline, that would
total
be
US
Methodist, Presbyterian USA, American Baptist, some of the older denominations.
Now, chances are what they did is they just basically asked that question. How would you just, on the continuum, on this continuum, where would you fall in terms of justifying torture? And often, sometimes, never, that's a pretty straightforward question, right? So,
Yeah, it looks like we got a 5-point Likert scale, guessing.
yeah, so, here's another thing, statistics can be made to say anything you want them to say. Cartoons can do the same thing. As it says, I don't know if you can see it, mention waterboarding and Congress goes nuts. Oh, maybe we should rename it something like bobbing for information. Right? And run for your lives, he means jogging's good for you. Oh, okay, all right. Everybody can do those things. Oh, going backward. And let's go forward. All right. Okay, so by now you've accessed the databases. You know about Google Scholar, right? You know now about Google Scholar. That's a nice reference. Burroughs, you've heard about Burroughs, right? It's a nice place to go looking for tests if you're ever. But sometimes you just do a search on Google for a test that you're interested in finding. That can be.
Has
very
anybody
helpful.
not been able to get onto the university's library database from off campus? Good.
You're good with that?
Everybody good with that?
Okay.
Cool. That's sometimes it.
So when you look at dependent and independent variables, what you do is you just ask yourself a question, something that you're interested in answering. And what explains conscientiousness? Is it your height? Your height would be the independent variable, and the conscientiousness would be the dependent variable. That depends upon your height, right? So when you ask a question, that's usually your dependent variable. Does that make sense? And then the answer is usually the independent variable, or the dependent
Yeah,
variable.
we were just talking about religiosity a second ago. Assuming that we come to a definition, what could explain it?
Yeah, throw some ideas out of this. What could be some dependent variables? Or independent. Say,
Attendance in church.
attendance at church could be something that explains religiosity. What else? Anything else?
If parents were religious,
Okay, that could, right? Because you had good models, right? Anything else?
Ask them religious affiliation, if they affiliate with anything.
Yeah,
'Cause if they
exactly.
say atheist, then.
Right. Okay, community service, you know, this external kind of outgoing, you know, I'm gonna help other people, maybe that could be a sign of religiosity, right?
I actually ran across a skill once that used environmental awareness, concern for the
Environmental
environment,
sensitivity.
as one of the factors that goes into religiosity.
Animal lovers?
Oh, I'm just, you know, taking care of the environment, you know,
But that means that they are religious or they're not religious?
it was one of the factors that measures how religious the person was. And it was according to this person's construct
Yeah.
of what constituted
We're
religiosity
throwing things out
was
there.
concern for the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're- we like to-
Theological terms, concern for God's creation.
Yes. We-
Stewards of God's
Yeah,
creation.
we like to throw things out there to try to figure out if there is a relationship. So you could throw things out like, if you're an animal lover, you might be more religious than other people. If you're a spider lover, you could be more religious. If you're a chocolate lover, you could be more religious. You know, really? The sky's the limit here, isn't it?
Well,
Really?
I'm on a pretty cold, a very warm place then, aren't I? I hate chocolate, so.
All right, so, I mean, you know, sometimes the crazier you get with these things, you know the research hasn't been done. I mean, do you think, in all seriousness, that somebody has done a study on whether you like chocolate and whether you're religious? I doubt it.
Yes,
If we found it, that would be amazing.
You
And
always
if we
have
found
to-
that that was
once
true.
you have to ask the question of, so what?
Yeah.
That just makes, it's Lent right now, right?
Say again?
Lent.
Yeah, yeah.
Lent,
Season
yeah.
of Lent.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to consider like the things that people give up for Lent.
Yeah.
The reason we're laughing is because we have
Give
a
up
nun
vegetables.
friend that has the most wonderful sense of humor. And-
Okay, I
Oh,
have to
you
tell.
tell,
I
you
have
tell.
to Okay, she was, I worked with her when I was in the military. She was a civilian contract social worker, right? And her first name was Judith, and she was the most delightful person you could ever meet, right? I just had the utmost respect for her. And one day she said to me, Dora, I said, what, Judith? And she said, I know exactly what I'm going to give up for Lent. And I said, you do? What? And she said, sex. I knew it. I hit the ground laughing. She had me. Oh, the delivery was perfect.
She do that. She-
And you guys did this with Jerry, right? You wrote things on it. You worked in small groups, and now he's very helpful. So listing passions, sometimes trying to find relationships between things that you enjoy, passions. You know, are better tennis players? Do they eat chocolate? I mean, I keep going back to chocolate because it's so stupid. But you know, you come up with these relationships, right?
Now, the downside, oh, go ahead.
I'm thinking about all of these different, you know, kind of rather extreme situations and kind of putting them together. But part of the, part of the thing is the problem. Let's identify a problem, right? So I'm thinking with these kind of extreme situations, how do you identify, like, if I'm thinking, okay, 2 variables, nuns and chocolate. What do they have to do with each other? What's the problem? You know, like, how do I derive?
Yeah.
If it's that extreme, how do I derive it?
Usually it's not gonna be that crazy, right? You know, but that crazy, actually, there might be something to it, you know? Who would have thought that, let me see, what's the crazy, oh, again, the hair tool and homosexuality would be related. Who would have thought? You know, and then, you know, and then to, you know, run a data analysis and find that there is a significant relationship. Who would have thought?
So is
Who
it
would
just
have thought?
like, think of these 2 kind of unrelated variables, run some data, and then from there, see if there's a conclusion that can be
Most
associated
of
with
the
problem?
time, though, most of the time, you already have in your head something.
Oh.
Like for example, remember the thing I showed you about the animated, full-length animated movies, and my sense that, you know, and it was just something
one
I
of those things you go,
observed over the years.
You know, literally go,
You know, and some people wouldn't even think of that, but I've observed it over the years, again and again and again, that every time a full-length animated movie comes out, I very, very rarely see female characters, and I thought, well, could there be some gender bias in that process? You know, another thing that probably would be close to my heart would be, okay, how about short people and television characters? How many times do you see short people, right? there is a discrimination bias against dark people.
Usually comical characters, right?
Yeah, they fit stereotypes, and you put them in there as if you want, But you know.
And they've done studies, people, especially men, Anglo-Saxon Protestant men over 6 foot, typically earn more
Right?
than anybody else, male or female.
Here's another crazy study. Somebody did a study on waitresses and waiters, and if they go and they say, "Oh, you've been a great customer. Here's a mint," you'll probably give them a bigger tip than no mint or a chocolate thing. Chocolate, right? Chocolate, right? Now, if they come back and say, "Hey, you deserve a tip. You were so great," you'll give them a bigger tip. Yeah. So somebody did research on that.
Oh, color and hunger.
Red.
What orange is associated
Reddish,
with
oranges.
yes,
Yeah.
and stimulating hunger. That's why you see a lot of restaurants, they have certain colors in it. Now, you go back to prison systems and people who are in drug tanks, they actually did research on this. If you paint that like a Pepto-Bismol pink, the cell, it will calm drunk guys down, or gals. It does. There's research out there. Now, a question that would lead me to, I would use that as a springboard. Color has been associated with this, and this. Okay, could color be associated with buying products? I don't know.
Well, color sells.
Yeah, well, but the displays that you use, if you use reds, could that, more so than yellows, more so than blues, could reds make you spend more money? When you think about it, I don't know.
Getting back to the Pepto-Bismol pink, University of Indiana, their football locker room for the visiting team.
It's pink.
The floors, the walls, the ceilings,
Pink.
the lockers, the showers.
Because what they've
everything.
noticed is that
Pink.
when men are
Pepto-Bismol.
in rooms that are pink, their testosterone levels go down.
Associate pink with girls.
Well, why do they want their testosterone? I mean, they're about to.
No, the
Right.
visiting.
The visiting team. Not them. No, not them. They want theirs to be okay. But what if a color increased testosterone level? See, so you just look at your environment, your world, and you start asking yourself questions. Could there be a relationship between this and this? I wonder. And you use something to springboard into that new discussion. For me, looking at gender inequities in animated films, I use the springboard of inequities in children's books to springboard into that topic. See? So you find a springboard, boop. Maybe nobody's ever done anything in this area, so you find a springboard.
Dora, I like old movies. I mean, from the 30s and 40s, oftentimes black and white. And Dora and I have both noticed that female characters in the 30s and 40s, maybe even 50s, but definitely in the 30s and
Oh, they were
40s.
tough.
These are tough.
In
These are
your
tough
face,
broads.
women.
You know what I mean?
In your face.
These are tough women.
Stood up
And
for
you go
themselves.
to 80s and 90s, and now it's the women are portrayed as these helpless.
Somebody's beating up their boyfriend, and they're going like, oh. They don't think to pick up the bar that's laying on the ground and hit the guy in the head. I mean, that would be the first thing I would do is I smack the guy in the head. I mean, anyway, okay.
Hey, we got this on tape too.
I don't advocate for violence. I'm a peace child. Okay. All right. I love German chocolate cake. Okay. All right. But vegetarianism and I don't know.
Academic performance.
Multicultural tolerance.
Yeah.
Who knows?
The thing is, when you have a passion for something, you really, really, really got to put a lid. You have to be very self-aware, because otherwise you're going to go from really liking the topic to advocating for a position and seeing the data through those glasses. You want to see the data for what they present, what story they're telling.
Thing.
What you looking for?
I'm looking for this coffee. These stupid experiment, but Okay, here, I gotta undo this because I can't find, oh, there it is. Okay, EDPC, okay. All right. Okay, EDRF, okay, let me see if I can find the caffeine thing. Caffeine. Where'd it go? Oh, let's go to movies. Caffeine, is there caffeine? Do you see caffeine? Okay. All right, now, talk about,
I had caffeine all day, or just to stay ahead.
oh no. There, no dose.
So, I'm crashing out 15 of these, and I am going to insert them into the filter.
Boys and girls, do not try this at home.
So
Dude,
they
do not.
improve.
But
But
you get a heart
I'm
attack.
really tired right
Really?
now.
Seriously?
Zach was like, well, I'm a rock star, and I'm like, well, let's beer bong it. All right, fathers, here we go. Start it off.
Fifteen.
16 ounces of rock star. Let's keep it calm. Two cups. No. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go.
It's like
go,
a
go,
monster
go, go,
drink
go,
or
go,
something.
Go. Woo!
Put a hole in the can, suck the air out of it, pop the tab, and it
The rock star was good.
shoots down your throat.
But I'm gonna take 2 more no-dos. Here we go.
What are those?
Caffeine pills.
Oh.
Caffeine pills.
Still in. Cool. Okay, so check this out. 25 cups of coffee in this little pitcher, basically. So we're gonna go ahead and do it up big, maybe. Do it up big. Wow, that's a lot. Do it. Maybe we should put like some Splenda in it or something. So I had like 18, equivalent of 17, 18 cups of coffee. 20 minutes. Status, hams, shaking a lot. Head, spinning. It feels so good though. Thrusting. I want to dance. I just want to dance.
Uh-oh. They're gonna go to the gym right now.
Feeling him up. He's gonna do the other half.
They let's just say they drink a lot. They take their shirts off because they get hot. They're actually in a dangerous situation.
What?
You know, they're doing more no-dos. And now look what he's doing. He's putting tape
Not
around
at all.
his face. He can't
So I have
find
no
him.
idea where he could be. But Zach. What are you doing?
Really throwing up.
That's probably the best thing that happened to him.
Did they stop
Why?
us?
What's going on? Shaking a lot. I don't know. This is a stupid idea. And you're not.
Oh yeah, was that a stupid idea?
That, no kidding.
Nuts.
How much total did they have? Like
They had, I don't know, they had like, they started out with 15 pills, they had a couple cups of coffee, then they did like 25 cups of coffee on top
Monster
of that,
drink.
and with the big bong thingy.
They're lucky they didn't die.
They are very lucky they didn't die. Oh, you just gotta see this because it's cute. This is a frog.
Oh.
Isn't that cute? I just think that's the cutest little thing. It's like a little toy, you know. Look at that, like a little dog. I find these funny things. I just love them. Where's that one frog that gets frozen? Remember that?
No, no.
Frog. That's a ping. That's not it. Frog. MP4. I think this is
Frog
it.
and cold?
Oh yeah, that might be it. Let's see if this is the one. That's the same one. Okay, the frog and cold. Hello. All right. Have you seen this one?
North American wood frogs. They're small. So it might be very difficult to spot a frog. Very small, but they're everywhere, just out of view, hiding on the forest floor.
Have you seen this? No? Oh, okay.
He's camouflaged. His coloration is the same as the soil around him. You see him here? He's cold. You can find them here in southern Ohio and all the way up to the Arctic Circle. But wherever they are, once it gets cold with the first sprinkle of ice, this frog does something I didn't know was possible. As soon as the frog touches, just touches an ice crystal,
this animal is going to freeze.
Freeze?
Freeze. Solid freeze.
That touch of ice immediately sets off signals inside the frog, says Professor John Costanzo, that pulls water away from the center of its body, so the frog's internal organs are now wrapped in a puddle of water that then turns to solid ice.
I still can't get over it. It's really an amazing thing.
There is no breathing, no kidney function. The heart stops.
And there'll be no heartbeat for a long period of time.
You mean as in no heartbeat?
Right.
Nothing. Flatline.
It's not good.
Flatline. For an hour or two?
It could be for days, perhaps even weeks.
Really? It sounds like it's virtually dead, no?
We know that the frog isn't dead, but he's probably about as close as you can get.
To being dead?
Yes.
So, from the outside, this little frog feels like a rock. Except that as it froze, the frog flooded itself with a kind of sugar.
The frog's blood sugar is distributed through the circulatory system. It works like an antifreeze.
It's harder for the water to freeze, so cells stay just damp enough for the animal to hold itself together. Until the springtime. When the days grow a little longer, and the ground gets a little warmer, and then, well, a kind of miracle happens. After weeks or months of no heartbeat, none, suddenly there's a pulse. And that first heartbeat leads to another, and then another. And then within a day, and in the case of this little frog, it took about 10 hours, the animal literally comes back to life.
Spontaneous resumption of function.
Why?
We don't know. We don't know what triggers that event.
And think how elegant a business this is. Because although the sun is warming up the outside of this little guy, somehow his insides, his heart, his brain, they thaw first. His insides warm up before his outsides.
You get it?
But somehow
Inside
it
before
all
the
happens
outside.
in perfect synchrony every spring.
Yes, and it's going to undertake a very energetic activity. It's mating time.
You mean hours after it falls, it's going to do it with a lady?
It's going to perform.
What an animal!
Can we say that on
I don't know.
The future of cryogenics.
Yeah? Did you know that?
Except their external fertilization.
Yeah, so there are things we just don't understand. Yeah. So hopefully you're not like this today. Isn't that cute? That's just a cute cat. Okay, all right, we didn't do that to you today, did we? All right, all right. No does there, right?
Yeah, that cat used to join up with those guys.
So, okay, so we did some redundant stuff, we went over some old stuff, we'll do that next week as well, but we'll get into some new stuff. And we are leaning in the direction of shorter, smarter, but we can't prove that. But
You can never prove that.
you can never prove that, is right. You can only, the best you can do is you can demonstrate some evidence that supports your hypothesis. And the more replication that occurs with that type of study, the more confident you are that there is such a relationship that exists. And hopefully your studies will be very interesting. Maybe you'll go on and do a dissertation with it. we're hoping. Anyway, so we'll see you next week. We'll stick around for any questions. Did you have?
The half page, is that this Friday, by tomorrow?
Yeah, if you want to get a half page for free, turn it in.
Yeah.
We will give you feedback for free.
Yeah,
I
send
mean,
it to my
you know,
personal email,
Yeah,
which I've given a couple of you.
we'll give it to you free. So that way you can get insight into how our little wicked brains think.
So if I send it tomorrow, when will you guys be able to?
We'll try to, if it comes in earlier than later, we'll try to turn around and get it back to you as quickly as possible, because we want to give you as much time to work on this thing, you know, with some feedback from you.
psimedia@mac.com.
Take us up on this. Every time we offer this,
Nobody takes us up on it.
one or two people take us up on it, and it's like the craziest thing. Why wouldn't you take us up on
It's
it?
like, so half
It's
page.
half page.
And if we make a mistake in that half page and we catch it when we're actually scoring new paper,
We
guess
will
what?
cut it against you. Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
on
we need
us.
to send it to you via.
Via
Email.
electronically, so electronically we can send you the feedback back.
Yep.
Right? So you get a little insight into our brains. We went over the paper, but sometimes it's better to see how we actually grade things, you know?
Sure.
And we're still modeling it after like sample units.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So we should have all those components in.
All those, but tell us what half page you
Oh, I have
want
no
us
idea
to.
what she's
You
correcting.
don't
I
even
didn't
have to have
got
the
it.
whole paper done. Well,
just
just
send
give us
it
a
out.
half page. Don't send us the title
Oh, yeah.
page.
Send
There's
it- send
nothing
a half
hardly
page.
to correct
Yeah,
on that.
just-
Do
References
at
don't
least
make
an
it.
You already sent
abstract
it?
if you don't have anything else done.
Actually,
Or the
Jim-
reference page,
Jim was
if you want that.
Oh.
And you guys will.
Oh,
all be on
if
that
she
page.
went over, then
I'm
you're,
saying-
then you're done. Yeah.
Right, if you give us the whole paper, we'll only look at a half page, give it back to you.
Okay.
And then you generalize what you learned from it to the rest of the paper.
Okay.
Right now, we got to it.
You are welcome.
Okay.
So she actually